Hello, Glow Tribe. Welcome to Glowing Flames. I'm Shimi.
I'm Tenny.
And we are your hosts. So today's conversation is about something we all go through but don't really like to talk about, which is dealing with failure. And no, I'm not talking about motivational quotes or you can do it. No, I'm talking about real pressure, real confusion, and how to actually start again. Of course, we are not doing this alone.
And we are joined by someone who on the outside looks like everything is worked out. He's a first-class graduate, a public speaker, and a strong leader. But behind every journey, there's always a solid limit. So join us as we have a conversation with Ajasa Kehinde, also known as
Tech with Ken. Woo!
Thank you very much.
So tell us, how are you feeling? What's going through your mind right now? How are you feeling?
How am I feeling about this podcast or about my life in general?
Let's start with this podcast.
For those of you that cannot see this, there is a plethora of individuals behind me, and it looks like I'm on a spotlight, it's like I'm acting a movie. And it just shows that pleasure is a privilege, and I'm quite thrilled about how this conversation will get to go. So, if you ask me how I'm feeling, I would say that on a scale of 1 to 10, I am feeling anxious to an extent of like 6. What I think that at the end of this conversation, it would blow your mind.
watch out.
This podcast would be an interesting one, and I cannot wait to dive into the conversations.
Okay, I cannot wait to.
Yes, I can't wait to blow your mind. So yeah, now let's talk about in general. So we are almost graduates. Okay, but yeah, last lap, we're almost graduates. But before we get there, how has life been as a graduate?
That's an interesting question, because graduating the first class puts you in a dilemma, sort of a bubble, that you would be invaluable to anybody you meet. So you come to the situation, you come to the realization that that's a lie. Also, you realize that you're not just in first class in one university, you're competing with a myriad of other individuals in other universities.
Yeah.
And you tend to see that people are actually exceptional. So life after school is a realization that you just won one face. This other face is your job. So it's hard. Extremely hard. And it doesn't change if you finish the first class or a 2-1 or a 2-2. Well, it's worse if it's a 2-2 or a 2-1 or a first class. It doesn't make it easier. It makes it even harder, both on yourself and on the external persons that you're having a relationship with. So life after school is a realization for me that your first class degree is just one of the multiple journeys that you have to go through. Now to start another one. It's crazy.
Very crazy. Now I'm scared to graduate.
Yeah, you can drop out now. It's fine.
No. We must bag that degree. We must bag it. Make mama and papa proud.
So you're not doing it for yourself, you're making it for mama and papa.
No, I'm doing it for myself too.
You said mama and papa.
Of course, it's all collabo. Mama, papa.
If you got the chance, would you go to the university?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Then what about you?
Moving on. Alright. Thank you so much for sharing that. But of late, I've been thinking about life after school, and really, I know that it's going to be a big something for every one of us that are graduating this year. And I hope that we find people and things work out well.
I think the funny thing is, if you think about life after school, it puts unnecessary strain on your mentality. When you've now eventually finished school, the strain that you were supposed to save to now put on yourself, you have started putting it on yourself. And then you're just getting to an enormous amount of problem. So what you have to do now is enjoy yourself. When you finish school, you think about life after school.
It's not better to think about it now.
Exactly.
Thinking about it now doesn't solve the problem, except if you intend to gather skills that helps you thrive outside of school. For instance, thinking about life after school now, what does that give you? The last time you thought about it, what did it help you with? Exactly. So if you're going to live your last 2 months in school without anxiety or with anxiety, which of them will you go for?
Without, definitely.
It's unnecessary pressure. The problem will still be there. Your job now is, if you want to think about it, you have to think about it with a solution-oriented mindset. In the sense that, okay, I'm going to finish school, I need to learn how to do this, learn how to do that, and start learning it now. So when you finish school, you can easily transition into the workplace. Just thinking about it doesn't solve the problem.
Thank you. Thank you for this.
You're
Have you
welcome.
heard all almost graduates? Please be calm. be calm about
I
it.
think people can still drop out by 400 level.
Why did you just want
Don't
people
drop
to
out.
drop?
You don't have to put graduate in your name. See, you're an undergrad. Like, you're
No,
a student. Graduate is not
no.
supposed to be there, but continue.
We
I'm not
have
you.
to. We have to get that degree.
Okay.
So yeah, when people see you, they see first class, they see
I have a
leadership.
question. When you see me,
Okay.
I've seen first class.
No,
When you
but
see first
people
class.
people that know
How?
people that know that you came out with like first class.
Okay.
And I think almost everybody in your circle knows that. Or everybody that looks up to you knows that you came out with the first class. So
Okay.
yeah, basically when people see people that know you, they see first class, they
Okay.
see leadership, and they see that you are also a tech guru.
Okay.
And when you look at it, it looks like a straight, smooth journey that oh you're doing great. But what part of that journey didn't go the way you expected it to?
No part went the way I expected it to. From the academics part to the leadership part to the public speaking part to the tech guru. Even if I think guru is a strong word to use in that position, none of them went as expected. And that's how life is. If it is going to go as planned, then we would not have substitutes in football games. If it's going to go as planned, people would not have plan A and plan B. The idea is that even if it doesn't go as planned, how easy can you be dynamic enough to ensure that you can now go back to the way you wanted it to be? So nothing went as planned. In fact, say for instance, my plan was to do this, do this, do this. In case you don't know, my plan was to finish with the 5.0. I didn't finish with the 5.0. That went way off the grid. My second plan in leadership was to become Lasusu president. It's quite interesting that I wanted a 5.0 and a Lasusu president. But anyways, that was that. That did not go as planned. For public speaking, there is a particular pinnacle of public speaking mastery I was supposed to get to. I kind of got there, but I did not get enough accolade in terms of competitions to defend that. That did not go as planned. Tech guru, like you said, that went way off grid. Because according to my plan, I was supposed to intern at Google in 2025. But I did not intern, neither did I intern at Google, but it's fine. All of those things, none of them went as planned. But the reality is that if you aim for there's this quote that says if you aim for the moon, you land on the star. Or rather, if you aim for the star, you land on the moon. I can't particularly pinpoint the accuracy of that quote. But it just tries to tell you that if your goal is very big, when you fail on something worthy. The goal was a 5.0. I failed to a first class. The goal was to become like the president. I failed to become the vice president of my department. If the vice president of my department was the goal, then I eventually become the HOC at the end of that. The bigger the goal, the more bigger. Not one, the bigger the goal, the more satisfactory the failure is. So if you want to, if you are aware that you're going to fail, look at the idea now. If you're aware that you're going to fail, then it only makes sense to just go big. Because you know you will fail. Now, if you're not going to fail, then you're going to fail on something worthy. So if you say you want to get the Grammys, because you're an artist and you want to get the Grammys, that is a very big goal. If you're going to fail, you're going to get 16 Eddies Award. And that is something truly remarkable. And that is a failure to you. So my failure is another person's success. Because their definition of success was not my definition of success. So none of the things that I planned to achieve went as planned. And I think that I'm not proud about it, but I'm happy it went that way. Because now I can give you this letters.
Mm. Okay, sharp, 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 sharp. So you mentioned politics while you were speaking, and why did you think of going into politics? And then you also mentioned that you had to drop it. Now, when you drop it, for you, it wasn't really failure, but it wasn't what you wanted. So would you say that fell under your list of priorities?
Politics in itself, yeah. So politics for me, I will give you the real reason. Okay, I'll give you the fake reason why I went into politics, and then the real reason. The fake reason was that I kind of went into a delusion of myself that I wanted politics because I wanted to be a great leader. I wanted to change the school environment. I wanted to help people. That the same canonical, conventional words all of those politicians use. They'll say, we are the voice of the students, we are this. I wanted to do that. Or rather, I thought that's what I wanted to do. But a realization in 300 level informed me that I did not want to be a politician to help the masses. I wanted to be a politician because I like being in the spotlight. Like I'm in now, I like it. Anyways, I love being in the spotlight, and then it pushed me towards politics. Unknown to me, I could have been a leader without being a politician. But politics in LASU is just it's just bed of roses, man. It's interesting, it's fun. There is this enormous amount of respect and accolade that come to it. And I was a sort of a scholar. So when people say it's a politician and a scholar, it just makes me feel better. So the real reason was I liked the spotlight. I loved the spotlight. But the fake reason I usually tell people was that I wanted to speak for the masses, I wanted to lead people, and that was false. I was a lie. Many of us lied to ourselves. I was lying to myself at that point. So when I realized that that was my problem, or that was why I wanted to go into politics, because I loved the spotlight, I realized I had to backtrack myself. So politics stopped being a priority for me for that reason first. And the second reason, which is quite interesting, is that I kind of learned the secret of focus. So people think that focus is saying no to something you don't want to do. I beg to differ. I think focus is saying no to something you want to do or something you don't need to do. For instance, say you have a class, yeah, and you also have to meet your mom at the market. So your mom called you to come to the market. You want to meet your mom. You want to have your alone time with your mom in the market. However, you also need to attend class. You want to do both of them, but you don't need to do both of them. You need to attend class. You want to meet your mom. Focus is saying no to your mom and then going to the market. Now, a normal traditional person listens to this is like, let him going ballistic. Now, why would you say that you leave class for your mom when you don't have? That's what focus is. So it's like we have two hands. If I put something on this hand and something on this hand, I want to pick something else. What do? I have to drop one and pick the other one. So I realized that my academics was suffering. My politics was getting a lot of accolade that I wanted. I just had to drop politics so I could pick up more things to boost my academics.
So basically, it was a necessary sacrifice.
It was a sacrifice. I don't know if it was necessary, but it was a sacrifice. I like sacrifices. We do sacrifice a lot. Anyhow you want to translate that, it's your business. But we do a lot of sacrifices. You know how that was sound in Yoruba?
How?
To do sacrifices in
Yeah,
Yoruba.
well,
I don't know. That's
So that was a very, very nice um contribution to what he asked you.
was it nice?
Yes, because I know it's. I'm sure you guys are learning. Right, but I have a question here. So can you share a moment in your life when you failed and it really, really shook you? Like when you failed and then it was so hard, because I feel like young people, when they fail, they find it hard to bounce back after failing. So they just stay there, remain stagnant, and don't want to even move forward. So was there a particular time in your life that you failed woefully? Not like what?
Actually, woefully. Okay, continue.
Yeah, and then you were unable to bounce back, or what happened during this time? What happened? Like, just tell us.
The interesting part about that question is if you want this entire podcast to be about my failure story, we can start by 9 a.m. and finish by 9 a.m. for the next day. It's a lot of stories. So, but the one that really stands out to me for a couple of reasons, because that one experience shaped my entire trajectory in Lagos State University, it has to be the semester that made me drop politics and go into full leadership and stuff. So, two experiences actually. The first one was that before 100 level first semester, I'm not supposed to give all of these details, but yeah, it's fine. 100 level first semester, I had a 4.8 as my CGPA. Second semester, 100 level, I had a 5.0. Now, I was on top of the world because, in my opinion, I was the best student in my department. Then 200 level first semester, something happened, and for the first time in my life, I got a 4.2 as a GP. So my CGPA went from like 4.9 to 4.6. So ballistic for me. I could not fathom what to do next. I kept going to meet lecturers that this is not my result. Bullshit. I did not see any result in all of this things. They said that is your result. And the most interesting part is there was this course that I really read for and I got a 3. Now I told my mom that there was no way I was getting a 3. I picked up my bag the next day, went to school. While I was walking to the office, I saw a long line of people trying to complain for the results. And I'm like, why you say if I wait till they give you? Now one I get. Okay. Wait till they give you. Na zero. So I wait till they give you. I said nothing. So I can't greet the lecturer. I said no, I came to complain. They say, the point is, these guys might not have done as much work as I did. But they thought that getting a 3 was success. I was very annoyed. But I went back home and I did not do anything about it. So that semester was like my biggest failure. Like somebody hears this, person will think I'm stupid. Like, are you mad? 4.2 is a failure to me. That was my lowest, so it was my failure. Yeah, and that taught me a lot of things in a very good way. One, it taught me lectural psychology. So we moved from CBT to written exams in 200 first semester, and I was still thinking like a CBT student. That was what I was feeling. Funniest thing is, getting a first class is less more about your intelligence. It's more about strategies. there are tactics for everything. So I learned all of those tactics in one semester, and I used it up until I graduated.
Please tell us those tactics.
Well, this is a podcast, not a consultation event.
Okay.
So, number one is I learned theory psychology. Marking a theory is totally different from marking a CBT exam. I also learned how to read. I also learned how to write in the exam, in the sense that if you write way too much than what the lecturer knows, you're going to fail. Because the difference between knowing and knowing too much is that if somebody is at the middle, the person will know that you don't know, and then when you know too much, the person will think you don't know still. So let's say they ask you definition, and you give the definition in Spanish. I don't know Spanish, so you're failing it. Or are you wrong? No, you aren't. So I read so much that I was giving the lecturers things that they did not ask me. And so in their opinion, like, yeah. So I learned all of those things. And I learned them the hard way. That was the best way I could learn, because like I'm saying it to you now. You're like, oh, okay. When you experience it, it's way different. So that taught me a lot of things that I started teaching people. And currently, the next BGS, which I presume would be in the Department of Computer Science, is somebody that went under my tutelage from like 200 level. And the reason is that I started giving him secrets that I could not get. And so 200 level first semester, when I had a 4.2, he had a 4.8. Because of the secrets that I've given him. And how did I know that that's what worked? Because other persons that did not try it did not work for them. So these things that failure teach you is one of the biggest lessons that you can ever have. Somebody told me one day that who do you want to have a conversation with, a 5.0 student or a 4.9 student? I don't have anything to talk about to a 5.0 student. So I'll pick the 4.9 students because I presume that this student has a lot to teach me about failure. So the 5.0 student, I've never failed before. That's like the first experience of failure. The second one for me would be in public speaking. So I applied to join the Last Debate Society in 200 level, and by the grace of God, I failed the exam that they did, and I did not become a member that first semester. That was crazy for me, because knowing where I came from, I was an average public speaker, but I knew that there was no way that all of these persons are better than me in public speaking. So I tried again. And trying again gave me the best decision of my life, because all my friends now, all of my closest friends, I met in the Last Debate Society. All of the decisions I've been making are decisions influenced by people I met in the Last Debate Society. And I also won 2 awards for the 2 things I did in the Last Debate Society. I think I'm quite a good communicator, as you can see, by the way, from the Last Debate Society. So it was interesting for me that I failed, but even more interesting that I could bounce back and try again. So I usually have a philosophy: either I win or I learn. Yeah, it's not failing, it's just learning.
Either I win or I learn. So during that period where you tried and tried again, and then you finally got into the Last Debate Society, even on your journey as a public speaker, was there a time where you didn't deliver as expected? And also, you became the General Secretary, first the faculty coordinator, and then the General Secretary of the Last Debate Society. Was there ever a moment where you didn't deliver as expected, both in public speaking and in leadership? And how did that affect?
So a lot of times I did not deliver as expected. However, what really makes me create an accurate metric or measurement for it is that when I don't deliver as expected, I go back home and have a metacognitive moment, or rather a self-reflection moment, and ask myself, did I not deliver as expected because I did not practice as expected, or because of luck? For instance, if I walked into this podcast and started asking me a question, I'm like, that's a great idea, without giving any tangible input. When I go back home, I ask myself, is it that the questions were too hard for me, or I did not even prepare for this podcast? If the answer was that the questions were too hard, I learned more. If the answer was that I did not prepare enough, I berate myself for it, because that is my fault. You guys asking that questions, it's not my fault, because I could not have presumed that what you would ask would be these questions. For me not preparing at all to answer basic questions like my academics, my all of this, it is really bad for me. And so when I don't act as expected, when I don't deliver my speeches to crazy heights, what I do is I ask myself, is it my fault, or it just happened? The most interesting thing is, if it's my fault, I take responsibility for it. If it just happened, I also take responsibility for it. I have this extreme ownership mentality. If I'm supposed to wash clothes today and the rain starts falling, it's my fault. I did not make the rain fall, but I could have washed it yesterday. So that's just it, yeah. I take extreme ownership. So when I don't do well, I go back. But to take extreme ownership, I need to have that self-reflection skills. That is the most important part of all of these things. You have to be able to correct yourself. You have to be able to self-criticize. You have to be able to think about what you're thinking. So it means that after this podcast, if the video output comes out, I'm watching it. I'm seeing my hand movement. I'm seeing my mouth movement. I'm seeing how I'm sounding. Why? I'm trying to assess myself in the most honest way I can. So that the next time I ever get the opportunity to stay in front of the camera, I do an exceptional job. So when I don't do as expected, which happens a lot of times, I get to learn more. When I do as expected, I don't learn as much as I'm supposed to learn when I don't do as expected. So if you give me the opportunity to fail and to win, well, if winning is not going to give me a lot of money, I think I might prefer to fail because I have enough to learn more when I fail than when I win. But if it's giving me money, please, I'm going to win. I'm always going to win.
Still about your public speaking. Of course, you've received so many feedbacks from people and even from yourself. So what's the hardest feedback you've ever received? It could be a sentence, it could be a side eye, it could be anything. The hardest feedback you've ever had to receive.
This is very interesting. This is a very brilliant question. Hardest feedback I've ever had to receive was 3 words. So I was trying to prepare for a particular competition, and I wrote my first speech, and I made a video and I sent it to my coach. And she said, so before I created the speech, I spent like 3 days researching. I did a lot of work. I watched almost all Busit and Bekwayo's videos on YouTube, watched Bingiang's videos on YouTube. I kept watching podcast upon podcast upon podcast to learn how to enunciate my words right. And when I did the video finally, my coach said, this is shit. 3 words. Was it shit? Now, in retrospect, it was shit. But at that point, I was like, I don't think I spoke to her for like 2 days. Because I was just, that criticism was just too much for me to handle. Yeah? But I eventually went back to the drawing board and I'm like, okay, this is shit, but no big. Okay, this is bad. And then as we walked it and we walked it and we walked it. And eventually I won the competition. Yeah? I think if I had presented that shit, I might not have won. The thing is, if you see somebody that truly wants you to succeed, everything the person says, you have to take them into consideration. Everything. Now, you also have to make sure that the person wants you to succeed. That is the other part. The other part is not wanting to get the feedback. It's being aware that the person wants you to succeed. So, yeah. So the hardest feedback for me was this is shit. And what it taught me was that I don't have criticism. Rather, I like validation. I like when people say, you too good. I like when people stroke my ego. Or rather, I liked when people stroke my ego. Those 3 words made me recalibrate on what I truly stand for. And I stand for growth. And growth can never be easy. That is not about feedback. Feedback is to help you with your growth. And growth can never be easy. If it's easy, then it's not good. Funniest thing is somebody said quickly, for most of time, somebody said something that stood out interestingly to me. He said that if you want to achieve something great now, currently the world is balanced. Yeah, as you are here, the world is balanced. If you want to achieve something great, say you want to get a master's at Harvard University, that is something that will make the world imbalanced. So there have to be forces that will stop you from doing that so that the world can get balanced back. Like for instance, everything is 50. One place is 50, one place is 50. If this place wants to get to 60, this place has to drop to 40. So these are the negative forces that want to drop you to achieve your goal. So when things like that happen, when criticism like that happen, when bad things like that happen, just like because you're going for something great, and that is what the growth process is like. So feedback are things that like kind of drop you from what you're looking or aiming for, but those are the things that you need that will propel you more to do great things.
All right, so thank you very much for that contribution here. I have a question. You said, how did you do with emotional weight after failing? Like, was there a particular time in your life that you felt ashamed or embarrassed after failing, and how did you overcome it?
Every time I failed, before I realized something, I usually feel embarrassed about that failure. That realization came after Lagos Business School. So I got to present a tech innovation at Lagos Business School. And while we were presenting, or while we wanted to present, after giving our impeccable speech, we stood up and wanted to demonstrate the robots that we built. And one of the wire had gone off. So it was not working. Professors, doctors, entrepreneurs, all of them were sitting in the hall. And I was looking at my co-founder, like, it's not working. Said, so guys, this thing is not working, and it was an hardware competition, it was robotics, but your robot is not working. So it just felt like a public speaking competition. When I got home that day, I was dejected, right? I had to go on YouTube to check videos of motivational speeches. I was watching motivational speeches. You are great, you are something, you are something. But one of those things changed the next day when I read a particular concept from somebody. He said, when you steal, Are you a thief? Or you stole? When you steal, are you a thief or you stole? So for instance, if I drop my phone down and you take it, you stole it. Do I call you a thief immediately? Or I will say that you stole? So let's say Shimi is a thief or Shimi stole.
Stole.
In the same way, there is no particular threshold of stealing that makes you a thief. People will say when you consistently steal, you are a thief. But there is no threshold. There's no definition that if you steal 5 times or if you steal 10 times, then you're a thief. And now I try to translate that same idea into failure. When you fail, you failed. You're not a failure. Funniest part is there is no amount of times that you should fail for you to be called a failure. There's no law. Nobody's saying that if you fail 20 times, you're a failure. If there was a law, then maybe I would have been a failure. So every time I failed, I'm just like, okay, you failed, you're not a failure. That was the emotional turnaround for me. The ability to recondition my mind that this was an experience, this is not who I am. It's an action, this is not who I am. Because once you think that failing or failure is who you are, then you have missed the entire point. Your emotions are clouded. So the solution for that is you failed. You're not a failure. That's the entire turnaround about it. And there is no amount of time that you fail to become a failure. So anytime you fail, you keep failing and keep failing. You go back home, you ask yourself why. Maybe sleep sometimes, maybe eat sometimes, play games, but then make sure that you come back and then you're good.
Speaking about tech, the UC Hub, what was the vision about it and how is it going?
The vision was to connect students to another student, for one student to learn from the other, where one student pays to learn from the other and the other one teaches the other person. That's it. That's the idea. Sort of a Fiverr, Upwork Fiverr, just for university. How is it going? We have finished the entire architecture of the backend system, and we intend to launch sometimes next month or per month. The only bottleneck I've been having is all of the co-founders have finished university and they have kind of transitioned into getting jobs, all of those things. Actually, they're kind of busy. That's why they go to a bit stunted. But that's the entire idea, and that's where we're at.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Well,
So I have another question here. What steps did you take to bounce back after that? What steps did you take? What were the things you did to bounce back after that?
Like every time you fail, did you go back to watch motivational videos on YouTube?
Yeah, so every time I failed, first thing I do is I accept that I failed. I think it all starts with acceptance. Yeah, after I accept, I become aware, or rather, it starts from awareness. Awareness that you have failed. So I don't try to talk myself out of it that you have not failed, you have not failed. No. Awareness that I have failed, then acceptance of failure. So I have failed. I'll be like, I think I have failed. I have failed. Yes, that's the awareness. And the acceptance is I have actually failed. The next thing is to go back and see why I failed. And I think it's the Swahili people. They call something Sankofa. And Sankofa means go back and get it. So what I do is I go back to get what happened. Yeah, I will trace my step back. I do everything as little as what I was eating yesterday when I was preparing my speech. To know if what that food I was eating affected my mentality on that speech I was working on. I go back to as far as thinking of the pen I was using to write an exam. To know if that pen ink did not allow the lecturer to see what I was writing. It has to do with the small details. I become obsessive about the details. And then I start changing things. And I start another experiment. Start to experimenting. So that is how I transition from the point of failure to the point of getting. And also another thing is the only time that you actually failed is when you're dead. If you think about it, if you can always wake up tomorrow, you have not failed. You just try it again. Yeah. So if you get a 0.0 in your CGPA, okay, there's the next semester you can get the 5.0. But if you die, then there's nothing else. And since we don't know when we are going to die, it just means that we don't know when we have failed. So you just keep going and keep going. But that's how I do. I accept, or rather, I become aware. I accept the failure. I backtrack. And then I tweak things. It's just as simple as that. It doesn't have to do with any motivational self-talk or stand in the mirror and say you are great. No, I don't do all of those things. I don't think it works.
I used to do it.
Well, I don't think it works. In my work, but I don't think it works. I don't do self-talk stuff now.
So my last question is what would you say to someone who feels like their failure defines them?
Always going.
What did I say to someone? It's so interesting. I think you should cut it out. You stole. You're not a thief. That's what I'll say to the person. So you failed. You're not a failure. Failure does not define you. Failure only reveals two things to you. It reveals your weakness and it reveals the world's weakness. Sometimes you fail because you're too good. I've been in situations where I meet people give the most incredible speech and I realize that the judges their mind could not understand what he was talking about because he was an advanced speaker and the judges were not as advanced as he was. That is the word failing you. Sometimes you fail because you are weak, sometimes you fail because the work is weak. So failure cannot define anybody. Because you stole, you're not the thief. That's the answer for them. What did I tell you? You stole, you're not the thief.
Sharp. You stole, you're not a thief. That's my new watchword.
But please, you have to put the concept back.
Yes.
You failed,
Yes.
not a failure. Exactly.
Yes, of course. All right, so I think we've come to the end of this episode. I think that, no, I know that we've taken so much. Once again, thank you for being here in the studio with us. Thank you for joining this episode.
Okay.
Thank you for the knowledge you have poured. And I know everybody listening, everybody watching, you've gained 2 or more things. And obviously, there's more to come where this came from. So
let's go.
Can I say something?
exactly.
So thank you very much for this invite. I did not envision my first physical podcast or visual podcast to be this accommodating. In case you don't know, you guys are amazing at what you do. And like you said, I'm one of the biggest fans because I literally know I'm one of the biggest. To the team, the entire team, thank you very much, Shimi. Thank you, Tenny. And then we have an exceptional videographer behind us.
Ayodele.
Thank you very much. That's such an amazing person. Hold on.
Thank you. So let's keep going through the pain
Together.